Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. In this tutorial we'll be creating this pink geode cake that was chosen by a friend of mine for her Hens night. I've taken a little bit of ganache and mixed it through with some buttercream to create this buttercream ganache hybrid. Sticking a red velvet cake to the cake board, I'm creating a dam of the same ganache frosting around each of the cake layers and then filling in with cream cheese frosting. The recipe for this will be linked in the eye icon and the description box below. Repeat until you've layered all of your cakes. I've used 2 cakes cut in half for this, and then create a really thick crumb coat. Because I know it's going to be covered in fondant, you're not going to really see through to the crumb coat through the fondant, and that's why I've just gone in with one really thick layer of a crumb coat. I like to start at the top and then add frosting onto the sides. Fill in any pockets as you smooth it down. And then once you're happy with the look of the side of the cake, you can bring that lip of frosting at the top into the center with a spatula. You could also put it in the fridge and then cut it off later with a really sharp knife, but I just used my spatula for this one. Once you're happy with the top, clean up the bottom of the cake. I've just used my spatula again. If you have a silver cake board, that might actually scratch, so you're better off using a wet cloth instead. Into the fridge it goes to set for at least an hour, and then in the meantime we'll be working on our fondant. So I have Bakels fondant in pink. I've added in a few drops of gel food color, and what I'm doing is I am kneading it through, but not entirely, so you end up with these really pretty little marbled lines through your fondant. Twist in a white log of fondant and then roll it out to about 3 or so millimeters in thickness. I like to use cornstarch on my countertop just to make sure that it doesn't stick, and I rotate my fondant continuously. Once it's nice and thin, drape it over your prepared ganache cake. Push out any of the air at the top, seal in the top edge, and then undo the pleats as you massage your fondant onto your cake. Work around your cake as you do this. I tend to find this is a lot easier. Some people like to stick the fondant on one side entirely and then work around the cake that way. I just find that the fondant dries out too much for me, so I continuously rotate as I undo the pleats. Cut off the excess and smooth it down with 2 fondant smoothers. Clap them at the very top of the cake to create nice sharp edges, and your fondant cake is done. Our next step now is to create that cave of crystals in the cake. So I've gotten a really sharp knife and I'm just scoring some lines. I'm not cutting too deep. I just want the general shape to be more or less how I like it. Once you have that template, dig a little deeper with your knife and cut away that fondant. Always following that guide that you created for yourself. Gently peel away that cut off area. Be mindful not to touch your fingers onto that cake, otherwise you're going to get ganache on your beautiful fondant icing. For best results, I would carve away at the cake a little bit at a time rather than going full-blown deep cut at the very beginning. It's just a little bit more control and you can shape it a little bit more, I guess, intentionally. Once you have a deep enough hole, and I recommend going nice and deep, add on your frosting just to create a bit of a crumb coat for yourself. Once it's all coated, pop it into the fridge to set for about 20 or so minutes before we apply our final layer of frosting into that section. Take your rock candy. This is rock candy on a stick, and I'm just crushing it into some tissue. If you can, try to leave them a little bit larger. It just becomes a lot easier later on trying to stick them onto your cake. To add a darker shade right in the center, I've added some edible red luster dust, giving a bit of a shake to coat all of my crystals. You could even use white crystals and then just chuck a whole different array of colored powders to make a multicolored section, without having to try to find all the colors in the crystal form. In goes that last layer of frosting. And while it's still wet, we're going to add in our crystals. I started dark in the very center, and then as I worked my way out, the crystals became lighter and lighter in shade. If you're enjoying these tutorials, feel free to subscribe. We upload a new cake decorating video every week. Once all your crystals have been attached and your buttercream is nicely hidden by those, then it's time to create that gold paint on the outside. I've mixed in some edible gold lust dust with vodka to create a bit of a paste and a paint, and applying it along the outside layer of those crystals. If your cake has become a little bit moist and sweaty from the fridge, you can leave it out in the countertop to dry. It'll take about an hour or so, but in my experience it's never done any damage. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and give it a go. If you do, hashtag Rosie's Dessert Spot so I can see your awesome creations as well. And we'll catch you in the next video.